Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Mindfulness Podcast. I'm Lawrence Ampofo, and this is episode number 5. Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Mindfulness Podcast. I'm Lawrence Ampofo. I'm super excited to welcome today's guest on the show, who is Neil Seligman. Neil is the founder of The Conscious Professional, an organisation that's built to teach busy professionals the art and science of incorporating mindfulness meditation practices and techniques into the workplace. As you'll hear later on in the interview, The Conscious Professional is centered around Neil's life passions of developing human potential and also the pursuit of excellence. As both a student and a teacher of mindfulness, he delights in training professionals who are becoming increasingly open about this new kind of awareness in the workplace. So, Neil, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the kind introduction.
No problem at all. So obviously, like you and I, we've met before, we've met at conferences before in the past, but I was wondering if you could tell everybody just what your background is and what inspired you to take this path.
Absolutely. I suppose the relevant part of the story begins when I was a teenager and travelled to America as a tennis coach on the Camp Counselors program, and I met a Reiki master in upstate New York who was working at the same camp. And to cut a long story short, basically got very interested in Reiki over the course of that summer and got into learning the 2 degrees that were available to me at that moment. And then came back a year later and the following year as well. And as well as working in this kids camp, which was great fun, I was also furthering my Reiki training and became a Reiki master, Usui Reiki master, and then a Karuna Reiki master as well, which is just a form of energy healing. And then as I came back to the UK, I was straight into my law degree at Bristol. For me, the sort of energy side of life and the way that I was using Reiki, it didn't necessarily fit very well with everything else that was happening in my life, or the way that I sort of saw the world unfolding. And I actually went into law and became a barrister and practiced for 8 years at a chambers called 12 Kings Bench Walk. And during that time, my real passions were still kind of human potential, professional excellence, and so on. But I was finding it hard to kind of bring these two things together. So you'd find me in court one day, but teaching meditation in the evening, maybe offering some Reiki treatments at the weekend, and so on. So those sort of parts of my life were quite separate. And then I think it got to a point where it just didn't feel right anymore to keep going as a barrister. And so in 2009, I left the law entirely without much of a plan, and set off to really discover what my life was going to be about next. And that's what led to The Conscious Professional, which in a completely unexpected way to me brought together these two kind of really important parts of my life. So The Conscious Professional is kind of the integration of those two aspects of my life, and it's my passion to kind of bring this work to people in the workplace and more widely as well.
So Wow, I mean, there's a lot there to
Yes.
unpack, and it's like so totally fascinating. But just to kind of go back a little bit, you were talking about how you're really fascinated by energy and this thing called human potential. But
Yeah.
what do you mean by that specifically with regards to human potential?
Human potential. So, to me, there is a real richness to what human beings can do with their consciousness, what's available to them in the realm of their awareness. And this is something that, as I was going through school and university and training and all the rest of it, there wasn't much support for talking about that. There wasn't really much language for talking about that. But I was finding with the trainings that I was going through as a healer, and I trained in quite a lot of different modalities over the years as I was pursuing my training in, I suppose, this world of energy and so on, chi. I discovered that there were these really interesting, useful, creative, wise places that you could access within your own awareness. And it seemed to me that if people could live more from those aspects, that would be beneficial. So the sort of human potential that I'm talking about is about dropping into those different almost abilities that we have that we perhaps don't use very often, or not as much as we could.
Do you think there's a little bit of an echo there, but do you think that technology, the way that we use technology today, kind of separates us a little bit from these human qualities and separates us from this achieving this human potential that you were talking about?
I think it can. I think we don't need to generalize and say that all technology does that, because of course it doesn't. We're connecting today over technology that wouldn't have been available, 20 years ago in this way on Skype and whatever. So it's not across the board, but certainly there are some behaviors which are cropping up as outcomes of our technology use, which are disconnecting ourselves from ourselves as well as from each other. And those are things which, I think we have to acknowledge we're kind of the babies in this. There is a huge amount of advancement that's been made in a very short period of time. And as human beings, our own sort of consciousness hasn't kept up with the increase in data and connectivity, which is almost total now. And therefore, I think, we can be gentle with ourselves as well and start thinking about, well, okay, so if these are some of the outcomes of what we've created, how can we now fine-tune it so that both of our awareness and also our technologies can work together in a way that's just more compatible. Different softwares, I don't know much about software and all of that, but they have to be integrated with each other. And at the moment, we seem to have an integration issue.
How do you? Of course, like you're a lawyer, trained lawyer as well, and kind of you've experienced all of this. So how do you see the way that we use technology? How do these affect professionals? How do they affect the way professionals go about their lives?
Well, I think at the moment, what we don't have any respite from is connection and messaging. So we're kind of able to bulldoze each other's attention through our use of email, through our smartphone usage, social media, and all the rest of it. And I think this was something that came out of the Wisdom 2.0 conference in San Francisco just a few weeks ago, that technologies have been, certainly in the past, developed with a design question like, how do you get people to communicate? And inviting this new kind of design question in, how do you help people to communicate well? And there was some quite practical demonstrations that this one particular engineer, Tristan Harris from Google, was putting forward, not as these are available and ready to go, but ways in which we could just use our use our technologies better so that other people would know in what state we're in, whether we welcome communication. We can have different drawers for things to go into so you can look at them later. The thing that's really got us into this addictive behavior is the notifications that we receive, which send us into seeking behavior. And it's very difficult to resist that sort of seeking behavior. So, we get a ping or a whoosh, or we see a red light on the BlackBerry, and we have this urge to move towards it. We have a kind of quite a deep driving urge to actually find out what it is. And so working with some of that in a different way to kind of just rework the design question and rework some of the technologies, I think is a step in the right direction. I don't think anyone has all the answers, but these are things that people are considering. And in fact, what Tristan Harris left us with at Wisdom was Google's not going to do this until the consumer demands it. And at the moment, consumers need to be educated that this is causing them a problem which is detrimental to not only their focus and attention and their productivity, but their well-being. And that a lot of the behaviours that I hear about and see within the workplace when I'm in training, are unwanted behaviours. People don't want to be in this state, but they are, and they don't know the way out.
I really like the message that you were giving just now, that actually, of course, we have this technology and the technology is fine, but it's just the way that we're actually using these tools and these services, which is the problem. And actually that we have it in our power to develop techniques to better use this technology that will be positive for our health. But also it's in our power to say to these organizations, right, that we want better tech. We want tech that does make us healthier, that does make us feel less stressed, and that does kind of integrate with us being human beings.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that call is going to become more widespread. The fact that Wisdom 2.0 is going from strength to strength, and that there are wonderful people like you putting this information out there. It's something which is growing and growing, and I think it's going to become exponential very soon. That this awareness is going to be out there, and then the changes will come. So I feel very positive about the direction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what I've kind of seen as, you're talking about a groundswell movement in this whole kind of awareness of how we use technology, and certainly within the corporate sphere and the professional sphere, mindfulness meditation training has become increasingly widespread. Why do you think this is?
I think partly because people are they know about it now. So there's a lot of information out there in magazines, on TV. It's something which is now, it's kind of found its time. And I think the wonderful work of John Kabat-Zinn has done a lot to bring that to a Western audience and even a corporate audience. It would be very difficult for a corporation to engage with something that was religious in overtones. So the secularization of mindfulness has been absolutely crucial in order to open it up to more people. So I think the interest is coming because people recognize that stress is not going away. Stress is in fact increasing, and that the technologies that we are just completely accustomed to are in some way adding to this. And there is a sort of upgrade in our human consciousness that's needed in order for us to work with this mass amount of data that we're exposed to every day, and this proliferation of connectivity.
Do you find that mindfulness meditation, is it being used a lot, would you say, in the legal profession?
In my experience, the legal profession are flirting with it. That is, in my view, a good thing. So whenever you're bringing something like this into a professional services organization where you've got a hierarchical structure, you've got very different needs and generational concerns throughout your population. These are things which have to be brought in very gently and in a voluntary way to start with. So firms will bring it in quite a soft way. And one of the most successful programs that we've been running with law firms and other service providers is a resilience course, which touches upon the digital resilience piece, as well as introducing mindfulness and just bringing some awareness to the landscape, the corporate landscape as it is, and seeing what's actually needed in the modern age in order to not just be successful, but to feel aligned, to be well, to have a long-term career, to feel like we're purposeful within our work. So it brings in a sort of a more rounded idea of what we're actually doing at work, rather than just, we're getting from A to B in terms of our career, but we spend massive amounts of our time at work, and particularly for lawyers who are still attached to the idea of more time is better, who are pulling massive days and very long work weeks and goes on for years and years, helping them actually to be present with their situation and not miss out on the experience. So I always remember the quote from John Kabat-Zinn last year at Wisdom. I think you were there as well in San Francisco, where he said the motivation for mindfulness is so that we don't miss out on our lives. And I think with the fast pace of life, this kind of idea that busy, important are all kind of good things to be and do, really takes us away from being very present with our day-to-day experience and being present with our colleagues and then taking it home and all the rest of it.
I really, really like that idea of kind of taking a rounded approach to work, that it's not just about mindfulness, that actually it's all about, in addition, having a sense of achievement, having a sense of importance as well at work. But one thing I did want to ask you was, how does mindfulness meditation and working on consciousness help professionals to do their jobs better?
So there's lots of great research on this, and there's more and more papers coming out every week. So it's hard to stay on top of all of it. But in terms of how does it actually practically help you, it's in respect of your focus, your attention, your ability to deal with stress, your ability to deal with difficult people and difficult situations. And it's also keys into your emotional regulation as well. So dealing with difficult internal states that you might experience. So the way I sort of explain mindfulness meditation is it's about bringing the same excellence that you bring to the rest of your professional life, which might be, drafting contracts or appearing in court or, writing emails or whatever it is that you're doing professionally. Bring the same professional excellence to your internal environment. And a lot of professionals, and I include myself in this at times and certainly years ago, the internal environment is quite almost like a rough neighborhood. You kind of don't want to go there too often. There's some difficulty with thoughts, our mindset, criticisms, judgments, emotional states that we struggle with, and so on. So it's about creating a more pristine internal environment that you take around with you through your day and through different aspects of your job.
A pristine internal environment. I love that phrase. I've never heard that before. So when you say that, what is a good day? What is a pristine internal environment? What should people be aiming for?
So a pristine internal environment is sort of something that you're committed to, and the ability to get there and remain there is an art. It's a daily practice. It's a moment by moment practice. So in terms of what we're sort of aiming for is just to feel more competent dealing with our own internal states and to feel more available in the present moment for whatever is happening. So one of the teaching points that comes out of mindfulness training as you continue with it is the approach that we have to uncertainty, vulnerability, and tragedy, all of which are going to touch us certainly in our personal lives, but aspects of that touch us within our professional day, every day as well. And it's about creating a sort of internal centeredness, a stillness, so that you're really familiar with your own core, your own center, who you are. And this helps us to be more on when we need to be on, and it also helps us to be more off when we need to be off. Most professionals that I talk to are looking for the off switch. They don't know how to turn off anymore. So they're in that sort of always on state. They're going to bed. Their brain is churning around thoughts. They're still on the task that they were doing today or worrying about the task that they're going to do tomorrow. And so on. There's no respite. They even find that on holiday, they're unable to completely relax. They're on their BlackBerry or they're checking in with things. And it's about showing people where the off switch is. And the reason why that off switch is important is because everything within the universe has an on and an off. A beam of light is actually light flashing at such a quick rate that we just see it as consistently on, but it's actually on, off, on, off, on, off. So absolutely everything in nature has this on, off. And if we don't find our own off switch, this ability to come back into stillness, come back into a quiet mind, then the outcomes of that are problematic. We're going to suffer with anxiety, we're going to potentially suffer with depression, stress, burnout, all those things which are outcomes of this kind of always on state.
I was talking to Alex Sujung Kimpang a couple of episodes ago, and he's an academic and an author, and he's based in Silicon Valley, and he was talking to me about the benefits of daydreaming, just looking out of the window, just being, not looking at a screen, not being assailed by notifications, but rather just kind of being with yourself and being with your own thoughts, and how incredibly productive people like Charles Darwin, people who produce monumental pieces of work, actively daydreamed. They actively weren't assailed by constant distractions. So I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying.
It's kind of this energy of wandering and flow that we're losing. Now, when I stopped practicing as a barrister, I suddenly had this kind of expanse of time, and I travelled a bit to start with, but then I was back in London and had a lot of time, and I was working with the same teacher that I work with currently, and one of the things I had to do, which she was instructing me to do, was to let go of discipline for a while and to just re-enter into the energy of flow, which had become absent in my life.
It's hard to do as a barrister, right?
Right. So, you've always got a list of things to do. There's no one else to rely on as a barrister. You're self-employed. If you don't get there, then, that's a problem. So you can't be ill, you can't be late, all these things. And, the stress is on you. And so, when I stopped practicing, I was having like dizziness attacks, massive headaches. This huge boil grew on my head for about a month, and it was just all the adrenaline that was still coursing around my system now had nothing to do, and so it took me a while to create a new kind of biology that would support the fact that I was no longer in this hyper-stress state. And the curious thing to me was that I would not have expressed to anyone at the time that I was stressed. To me, the state that I was in was normal. It was perfectly appropriate for what I was doing. And I would not have told anyone there was anything wrong because I didn't consider there to be anything wrong. It was working. I was high functioning.
And that's acceptable. in life, right? To say, well, I'm just working, and don't worry about me. And
It's more than acceptable. It's championed by
yeah,
society. You're kind of a winner if you're doing that. Kudos to you.
agreed.
You're so busy. You're so important. You're getting things done. You kind of we kind of champion that.
Yeah, I think I mean, certainly this is something I'm going to focus on in later episodes, but this epidemic of busyness
Yeah.
is something that's just really pernicious in society, and definitely I want to explore whether this is kind of being supported, if not driven by technology. But Neil, I just wanted to ask, do you think technology itself can help professionals to be more mindful or more conscious?
I think it can. Absolutely. I mean, technology is not going away, and we'd be really silly not to use it to all the advantages that it has. So, in terms of the technologies that are coming through, there's some fantastic apps out there which can teach you mindfulness in your spare time, on your commute, and all the rest of it, which I think are a really great first step towards engaging with this. And you don't have to wait for your employer to think it's a good idea to offer you some mindfulness training. For very relatively small amounts of money, you can get some of these apps. A lot of them are free, and they're really very useful. The ones that I really use are Headspace, which I think is great, Andy Puddicombe's app, and also Buddhify I think is great. Those are the two that I sort of go to, and then I picked up this little wearable thing at the Wisdom 2.0 conference, which is called Spire.
Spire. Okay, I have to find that.
SPIRE, and it's sort of on my waistband, and it listens basically to my breathing. I'm not quite sure exactly how it works. I don't want to misrepresent it. But on my iPhone, I can see this representation of my breathing as it's happening right now. And it's going to tell me when I'm focused, when I'm calm, when I'm in a period of activity, or when I'm tense, which is actually really interesting feedback. I only started using it yesterday, so I can't report back too much about how brilliant it is. But it definitely sort of sets you off in an intention to, you can set goals of how long you want to be focused for in a day, or how calm you want to be for how long, and so on.
Well, this is something that I'm sure you know of Linda Stone, when she talks about this whole idea of continuous partial attention, and especially the whole thing of email apnea, right? Where we tend to hold our breath when we're reading email, be they particularly stressful or not, or when we just hold our breath when we're around our technology. And of course, it sounds like this piece of tech that you've got now to kind of measure the depth of your breathing and the rate of your breathing would be really useful for professionals, especially sedentary ones.
Exactly. I think I think this is a very exciting field that is developing, and absolutely we can use these things to assist us as much as we can use them to cause us problems. And really, the technologies that are coming through are outcomes of the consciousness that we're in. So if we see that, if mindfulness is growing and growing in society, and I do think that it's not just a fad or a trend, but it's actually something which is going to continue to grow, that consciousness is going to be evolving and growing within that as a collective, and that the technologies and the companies that we create and the work that we do and everything else is going to become more infused with what is now important to us.
Is there a conscious professional app coming out soon? Then, do you think?
I'm currently working on one. Yeah.
Oh right, fantastic.
Yeah, it's early stages, so I'd hope we get some sort of prototype into the market by the end of the year. But yeah, I'm working on that at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, let me know, and certainly I'll put that up on the website so that people can know where to find that. Fabulous. So technology definitely has a role in helping people become more mindful or more conscious. But what it sounds like what you're talking about is certainly there's a massive role for the human in all of this. That the way to becoming more mindful, to kind of create these more pristine internal states, right? Of kind of having less stress, being more calm, being more empathetic. These are practices, right? These are processes. It's not. There's no magic bullet here that you can take. There's not a pill that you can take to just become more empathetic. Rather, it's something that it's a path that one takes.
I think so, albeit, you know, it's nice, I think, to think about these things as just parts of our general human functioning. You know, in the same way that if you look back over the last 40 or 50 years, gyms sprang up. You know, people weren't going to a gym to exercise, but now it's just kind of normal. You know, you either do it or you don't, but it's available to you. No one thinks going to the gym is weird. And that's obviously enhancing your physical well-being and all the rest of it. So we kind of think that's fine, that's normal. And mindfulness is going to become that sort of thing. It's just another way of engaging with what you brought with you when you were born, which was this kind of human consciousness, this human body. And that's why I think it's something which can be very simple. You know, we have a bit of a problem in the world with the word spirituality, with it sort of turning a lot of people off. And I think when we're talking about dealing with human potential and the abilities we have with our consciousness, it's really just, we're talking about something which is a function of being human. You know, you don't need to belong to any club, you don't need to observe any rules. It's simply something that you can enter into the experience of yourself, for yourself, and what you find out within the realm of your internal awareness is yours. It's your wisdom, it's your creativity. You know, these are really valuable things in our society, and really getting to know yourself. You know, deeply compassionate human being, as all of us are, down, you know, deep down at heart, and just really connecting with really the truth of who we are. And that's something which, you know, excites me as you know, this evolves.
And these are things that we're just not encouraged to explore, really. Certainly, I think in our educational institutions, but certainly when we go out into the world of work, where everything is set up really for us to produce, right? Our level of success is measured by the amount that we produce, whether it be money or whatever it is we're expected to produce. But this whole exploration, like you say, of becoming more compassionate, more empathetic, more creative, and you know, of course, if you work in a creative industry, that's, you can strike that out. But you know, just in general, being more creative, these aren't really encouraged.
So I think one of the, you know, things that is potentially going to change as business becomes more open to these ideas and more enlightened, I suppose, is that the idea of productivity won't be just about me and the company. We'll start to move out our awareness into how, say, a company interplays in the ecosystem of the market and the wider ecosystem of the world. And this is the sort of consciousness, I think, that we're gradually moving towards. It's about recognizing the interconnectivity of every single one of us and the responsibility that we should take if we're acting compassionately with our thought forms, with our conversations, with our products, with the services that we provide. And so it's really about just taking the awareness out and thinking about productivity in a different way. So I don't think we need to demonize productivity. We just need to be more compassionate in our approach to what does that mean.
My penultimate question for you is, what can people take away right now? What can people do right now to become calmer, less stressed, more compassionate, more empathetic at work?
So I think a practice of stillness is key to this. And whether you do that with an app or simply through a curious exploration of what actually happens when you sit down and take yourself away from your other technologies, that is the simplest and most powerful thing that people can do. The gift of 5 minutes of stillness in the morning, and just being very present and compassionate with whatever arises, and just letting whatever happens play out without judgment, is something which is actually revolutionary. In our societies and our cities that are constantly on the go, the decision to just stop, sit down, and be still for 5 minutes is really the radicalism of our time. And you don't need an app for that. You don't need anything else for that other than just you. Everything that you need to develop this capacity is actually inbuilt in the human being. So it's just a simple commitment, and that's the invitation.
Fantastic. So people basically, they already have the tools and the gifts that they need to
Absolutely.
become what they want.
Yep.
Brilliant. So Neil, thank you so much for coming on. This has been totally fascinating, and I could go on with this discussion for hours. Where can people find out more about you?
So the website is theconsciousprofessional.com. I also do artwork as well, and that's soulportraitstudio.com. So those are the best places to reach me.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put links to those in the show notes. Neil Seligman of The Conscious Professional, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you so much for having me. All the best, Lawrence.
Well, that was an absolutely fascinating talk with Neil Seligman, showing you how being mindful in the workplace can really benefit our relationships with technology. If you want to learn more about Neil and his work, check out the links on the show notes for this episode at digitalmindfulness.net/blog, where you can find all of the other interviews we've conducted. I hope that this episode has inspired you in some way, shape, or form to think about your relationship with technology and yourself a bit more. Until the next time, take care.